Hey everyone, happy Thanksgiving and welcome into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and today I'm going to break down the 5 biggest moments so far here in 2025 that shaped the cannabis industry, both politically, financially, and culturally. So if you're looking for the clearest snapshot of how the industry shifted this year, these are the storylines that grabbed everyone's attention, the 5 biggest moments which I believe so far here in 2025. So with that, let's get into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5. All right, let's begin with number 1, the moment that sent the entire sector into headline mode. Let's look back on August 11th, where President Trump said his administration was looking at reclassification of marijuana and would make a decision in the next few weeks. So that instantly shifted the tone in Washington, and it created euphoria for the industry. For months, there were quiet signals that the federal agencies were reviewing rescheduling. But once the president said it publicly, it really created real momentum, especially on the investor side. Stocks definitely ripped back then. The markets reacted. Operators suddenly had to start looking at maybe recalculating strategy, and suddenly federal reform wasn't theatrical anymore. It was a real thing in most people's eyes. And with that political spark had set the stage for what became the most disruptive policy move of the entire year. But here we are at Thanksgiving, and nothing has progressed since then. All right, let's now move to the news earlier this month, where Congress passed and President Trump signed a government funding bill that reshaped the hemp world overnight. So this bill, it banned intoxicating hemp-derived THC products nationwide, Delta 8, Delta 10, THCA flower, and anything with detectable THC. So as we know, this was not a tweak. It was a full rewrite of the federal definition of hemp. It's a $28 billion market, and it was erased pretty much in one move, or at least reduced by more than 85%. Regulated cannabis companies, they saw this as a massive shift and really an opportunity to finally eliminate the hemp loophole that had been undercutting the regulated market for years. But there's another side. Layoffs, lost businesses, and likely a jump in the black market activity are things to come. Industrial hemp, it stays legal. Textiles, rope, non-intoxicating uses, but consumer intoxicating products, in the next 365 days, they're going to be gone. And that'll probably move even a lot quicker than the 365. And while hemp was going through one historic reset, one major MSO was going through a reset of its own, but for very different reasons, which brings us to our next big moment so far here in 2025, and that is Ayr Wellness. When we look at this company, it was one of the biggest corporate stories of 2025, a company once viewed as a rising U.S. operator with multi-state ambitions. So here's what the timeline actually looked like when we look back. On July 30th, the RSA, otherwise known as the Restructuring Support Agreement, Ayr announced it had reached a restructuring support agreement with its senior note holders. So the agreement laid out the framework for how its debt would be restructured going forward. It signaled that leaders were formally preparing to take control of the company's assets, but it wasn't a court filing, at least not yet. Then in October 13th, lender-directed steps began. Ayr then announced that restructuring steps under the RSA were now underway. So this included foreclosure sales and asset transfer processes initiated by its lender. This was the point where it became clear that Ayr was moving into a wind-down scenario. And then earlier this month on November 17th, the court filing. Ayr Wellness officially initiated the company's Creditors Arrangement Act, otherwise known as the CCAA proceedings, in the Supreme Court of British Columbia up in Canada. So this marked the formal entry into court-supervised creditor protection, basically Canada's equivalent to Chapter 11. So once that happened, ownership effectively shifted to the senior note holders, who moved Ayr's key assets into an acquisition vehicle. What a collapse this was. It was without a doubt one of the largest restructurings in North American cannabis history to date, and a billboard-sized example of how debt pressure and limited access to capital continue to crush U.S. operators. This was once a promising story, and I know a lot of investors got hit hard when it came to this company. But while companies were collapsing under financial pressure, others actually were positioning themselves for completely new growth cycles. And none more than our fourth point here today, and that's Village Farms. They are the growth story of 2025. So when we look back on May 30th, Village Farms, it closed a major deal to privatize its fresh produce business. So with that, they walked away with around $40 million in cash, plus equity in Vanguard Food LP. So this move had almost fully transitioned Village Farms into a dedicated cannabis company. So now we understand exactly who they are. So with 160 acres of advanced greenhouse capacity, new liquidity, and one of the strongest global export footprints in the space, Village Farms was instantly positioned as a global expansion platform. Analysts raised price targets, profitability projections improved, and Village Farms suddenly became the rare cannabis company entering 2026 with real financial flexibility. And their numbers don't lie. Some of their latest earnings have proved to be massive. And while Village Farms was building its runway, another moment in Washington added rocket fuel to the political side of the cannabis conversation. And this perhaps could be the biggest one of all here in 2025. So the fifth point we're making here, and it's perhaps the biggest, is Trump's Truth Social video on cannabinoids. Back on September 28th, Trump posted a Truth Social video breaking down the endocannabinoid system and calling CBD a game changer, especially for seniors. He tied the message to a wellness group called the Commonwealth Project and leaned into the idea of cannabinoids as part of healthy aging. Keep your eye on Howard Kessler and all this. So the reaction, well, it was instant. Cannabis stocks, they spiked. CBD brands saw new attention. Political strategists started rerunning their timelines on possible rescheduling. So when you look back, the message, it wasn't just about CBD. It was about signaling to older voters, swing states, and the broader health and wellness audience, all while positioning cannabinoids as mainstream policy conversation. And really, when you zoom out, all these storylines, in some ways, they do connect. So when you put together, these were the 5 biggest moments, in my opinion, that reshaped cannabis and the industry right now so far this year in 2025. A president who publicly considered rescheduling, a national hemp ban that wiped out an entire parallel market, a major MSO restructuring through a court-supervised collapse, Village Farms transforming into the growth story, a cash-rich cannabis platform, and obviously the last, cannabinoids entering mainstream political messaging through Trump's Truth Social post. So 2025, we know it has been a roller coaster ride. We've had our ups and we've had our downs. And right now, I can understand the industry is frustrated because no news from Washington and stocks are continued to drip out. But the key in all this is that, look, the hemp industry, it is controversial, but we know where Washington sits on this now. And if you want regulation, you have to clean this up. And I know it's a controversial topic, but here's the thing. President Trump, he has commented on rescheduling. We saw some Truth Social posts, and the topic has been generated around the president, the Senate, Congress. Like, this is a conversation that is taking place. So as much as we want to get the information that we want, we are making progress because this, as I said before, is no longer a fringe issue. It's beginning to float through the hallways of Washington, and the conversation seems to be happening a lot more often than it has in previous years. So let us know in the comments below, what do you think of our top 5 biggest developments so far here in 2025? Everything we're missing? If so, leave your comments below. We'd love to get your feedback. As usual, if you like this breakdown, give it a like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. That's it for now, everybody. And again, happy Thanksgiving to all of our American viewers. Enjoy the rest of your holiday season here, and we'll see you back here next week. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and thanks again for watching.